A big deal for Jalen Ramsey right before the season starts. Miami is making a statement. We'll talk about that and more here on the new Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise and Wiggy's ready with his scissors and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL, and welcome to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of our local experts. And you know they know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the barber, Tony Wiggins, joined today by legendary Locked On NFL expert and the first host of Locked On NFL years ago. Welcome back, Matt Williamson.
Yeah, man, I'm psyched. I mean, just a quick, we got time. We got so much stuff to talk about. I mean, it's week one. It's time to roll. Nobody cares about the background, but David Locke was courteous enough as soon as I was let go from ESPN to call me up and be like, I want you to be the first ever football host of any Locked On podcast. We're going to call it Locked On NFL. Are you interested? I said, sign me up. And we built this thing up, and then we've reformatted, and now it's Peacock and Williamson. We still do the same stuff. And more importantly, I'm psyched to talk to you, man, every Friday. Every Friday, we're going to do this at the end of the week, and there's so much going on. Let's talk football, bud.
Yeah, man, let's talk about it. We appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day and for being an everyday here on Locked On NFL, which is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you tune in every day and check out the Madman Tyler Rowland for his NFL coverage. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by, it doesn't matter if I hesitate right here while I find that because I'll go back and edit this out. Let's see. I'll clip this little piece right here. That's the good thing about this now. Today,
yeah, that's great.
PrizePicks. That's right, PrizePicks. Look, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL. All right, to win $50, $50 instantly when you play $5. Let's get to the rundown. I'm going to tell you briefly here some of the things that we're going to talk about here on Locked On NFL. We're going to get to, of course, a rapid fire. We're going to talk about all the games, all the big significant games in segment 3. We're going to run through that. And here's some clips from the local experts and get you up to snuff on all of that stuff. Look, man, the Love kid, it's a lot of love in Green Bay, right, for Jordan Love. He looks to exploit the Eagles and their new defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. Some injuries have made that a little bit more easily to do, I believe, over in Brazil. But we're going to start at the top. Jalen Ramsey getting paid. It seems like he gets paid all the time. A man was missing practice with a quote-unquote hamstring injury, and that got fixed up 2 days before the game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kyle Krabs talked about it. Let's see what he had to say.
Breaking news this morning. Miami Dolphins cornerback Jalen Ramsey agreeing to terms per Cam Wolfe and Ian Rappaport of NFL Network on a 3-year contract extension that makes him the NFL's highest paid cornerback on an annual average salary basis, a 3-year, $72.3 million deal done by David Mulugheta of Athletes First. Jalen Ramsey, of course, was the lone non-participant of players on the 53-man roster yesterday at practice, listed on the injury report with a hamstring. And I think this tells you just about everything you need to know. 3-year, $72.3 million extension includes $55.3 million in guarantees. That was agreed to a couple of days ago, but Ramsey wanted to wait until he was back on the field to release it. Safe to say he'll be at practice today.
Guys always seem to get well when that ink gets wet and dry on that contract. I believe this is a good sign. You have to take care of your best players, keep them happy. You can't win without game-changing guys. Good deal for Jalen Ramsey here to start the season.
Yeah, no question. And it's a very aggressive organization that's in it to win it right now. Just gave money to Waddle, to some others. They're pushing all their chips in. And Ramsey's a remarkable talent. He's had a phenomenal career. Man, zone. He used to play that star position for the Rams near the line of scrimmage. He can do it all. And frankly, the rest of the corner group for Miami is pretty suspect. So they'd be in bad shape without him.
Yeah, they would be in bad shape without him. It's a big test for them coming up this week against the Jaguars, and we'll preview that a little bit in segment 3. But I just find it interesting that some organizations, now I might throw my organization, the Jaguars, up under the bus a little bit. I don't think this version of the Jaguars would have this problem that they had a few years ago. It just seems like the organizations that understand and that get the difference makers, whether it's 5 or 6 of them, like you mentioned, Miami, they looked at it, they circled it, they said, nope, we got it right now. It's like the opposite of what, say, Carolina did with Brian Burns. Why would you start over? You know, a 26-year-old pass rusher that's a pretty good start. So I get that some teams, they purge their rosters when they're rebuilding. Miami is not necessarily rebuilding, but they're saying we got these playmakers and we're going to go top heavy. And I think it's refreshing because guys need to get paid.
And along those lines, you mentioned Carolina. Denver's probably not winning the Super Bowl this year, but they just kept Surtain because he's a special player, and build around your guys.
Yep. With all the wide receivers getting a whole bunch of money around the league, somebody has to cover them. We saw an excellent game last night to start the year. I think we got robbed a little bit. We saw Lamar Jackson play, I think, well. I think I knew it was coming that people were going to start blaming Lamar Jackson for the loss because of some throws that he missed. Let's listen to Tyler Rowland, the madman.
Everyone watched the same game that I watched. Yes. The toe was out of bounds, Kevin Durant style. It didn't count, but he missed a wide open Isaiah Likely a couple of plays before that when Likely went down and was hurt on the ground. He missed Zay Flowers on the play right before that, wide open with nobody next to him. So it's like, I don't know. I guess it's one of those things where I feel like all of the running and the plays and the highlights, it's like Madden. It's like what we all wanted to see growing up, a quarterback being able to make those plays. But at the end of the day, he doesn't make the clutch plays. And then because there's a toe on the line, people are going to make excuses for it. I guess my big takeaway is Lamar Jackson wasn't good enough in the clutch despite being good for most of the game.
I cannot disagree with you more. Ravens fans don't listen to this guy, right? They call him a madman for a reason.
Matt, react to what you just heard Tyler say.
Oh, I'm with Ross. I'll call him out for missing Zay Flowers in the end zone. And that's not as easy a throw as you think. Rolling right, throwing to your left across your body, but he was wide open. It's a throw you got to make. I thought during that entire game, an average starting quarterback, athlete, talent, probably gets sacked 6 or 7 times, maybe 8. And the only reason they were even in that game is Lamar. I thought they were getting thoroughly outplayed. I'm extremely worried about the Ravens' offensive line. And there were times where they just whipped the offensive lineman so quick. Chris Jones would come down and break down like he's fielding a punt because he didn't want to miss Lamar. Like a normal quarterback's getting hit in the teeth over and over and over.
Yeah. So I basically have a preference for style of quarterback. Mm-hmm. It's now it's going to date me a little bit, but I always thought Troy Aikman was the quintessential. Just if you go to a camp looking for a quarterback, that's him. Mm-hmm. Big, strong, can throw it in any kind of way. Doesn't have to have 40 attempts in order to be very effective. So with that being said, I still watch Lamar Jackson, and if I'm rooting for the other team, I'm scared to death the entire time. So my fear of what he can actually do trumps my preference for the type of player that I like to be playing that position. I don't think you can blame him for the loss because they wouldn't have been in that position if it had not been for him. Without him, they're not even close. And this rush to think that the Ravens somehow have missed their opportunity, we all have to pause and say, okay, this is week 1. And not only is it week 1, this is the first time for 60 minutes these guys are playing an entire game. But the other thing, they were down 1 score on the 4-yard line, and an inch of a toe kept them from tying the game. And the reason why I said that they got robbed is because I wanted to see them go for 2. They had already put this up. That's a bigger story if we're just allowed to let this thing play out. And I know you can't do that. The bigger story for me would have been, he either makes it or he doesn't. And even in that situation, Harbaugh doesn't lose because it shows aggressiveness. If they make it, they win, and nobody's talking about them taking a step back. That is the Super Bowl champion and the Super Bowl favorite on the road that they were playing. But the other part of it is, even if they miss it, people be like, nah, but that's what you got to do when you're playing on the road. So a missed opportunity, but I don't think the season is over for them. The season is just getting started for a whole lot of other people, including the Green Bay Packers and the Eagles, who will go at it. They will go at it in Brazil, and we'll talk about that here in segment 2 on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by LinkedIn. I've opened 2 small businesses, and I'm on my 3rd now. I'm telling you, I couldn't have done it without LinkedIn because I was so focused on regulations and permits and handling things with the contractor. I forgot I actually needed employees. LinkedIn took care of that for me, and they could take care of it for you too, because it's not just a job board. It's where over 70% of LinkedIn users, they don't even use other job sites. So you're looking in the wrong place if you're not on LinkedIn. Here's what you have to do. You have to go to where the people are. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. All you got to do is post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome to the new version of the Locked On NFL podcast. Look, we're here, man, and Locked On is now 2 shows every day. First, the Madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL Espresso. Then stop by the barbershop right here where you are with me, Tony Wiggins, for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot topics, detailed breakdown, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL. It's twice a day. Make the Madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, here with Matt Williamson, the expert of the day, here every Friday on Locked On NFL with me in the barbershop. Another game. We always talk about Thursday games, and then we have to wait until Sunday. Guess what? We got a game on Friday, man. You know, it's something else. 2 really, really good teams over in Brazil, the Eagles and the Packers. The Packers have their new, very rich quarterback, Jordan Love. He is new to all of us from a playing perspective, but he's been in their organization for 4 years, and I think that answer is going to answer a question that we're about to have raised by my man, Peter Bukowski.
Questions about the money and why you would pay off of 1 year this kind of money. Now, I'm not going to bore everydayers with those cases. I've been making them over and over and over. I was not surprised when this is where the money came in. In fact, I projected it on this show. And when the signing bonus money came in, I was not surprised. The Packers recognized the value, but that's not enough. We see teams make bad decisions in these moments. I was having this discussion with a person on social media, which is, always dangerous. And what I was saying was the teams that sign even just good quarterback to top of market deals tend not to regret it because they still help you find success. And you're not Carolina. You're not Tennessee. Tennessee has been trying to find a franchise quarterback since like Vince Young was a rookie. So that is part of the calculation that you have to make here.
I think Peter Bukowski, first of all, that little laugh that he did right there, that little wicked laugh right in the middle, it kind of scared me a little bit. But He doesn't scare me because he's so smart and he makes a very, very valid point. You and I were talking about this prior to the show. Fans and sometimes even members of the media is something that they miss when they say, well, we only got 1 year sample of what he is or what Jordan Love is. That's not correct for the organization. They have a 4-year sample of what he is. They watched him practice. They watched him develop. They actually developed him. They know his workflow, whether or not he's the leadership or has leadership capabilities. Does he come in early? Does he stay late? They actually have the benefit to make these choices that other people don't. And sometimes it leads to a little bit of a misunderstanding about what that player's true value is.
100%. And he's an immensely talented quarterback. And I'm a believer and swinging for the fences on talent. And if it happens to bite me in the butt, so be it. I went after it. I'm swinging to win the Super Bowl. I mean, a conversation like Tua's contract's a lot different because I don't think he has the ceiling of somebody like Love. And your point's a great one. I mean, I was a scout for the Browns. I was inside that building every day. Now I'm very close to the Steelers organization. I'm in that I'm not behind the walls, but I'm in the building a lot. And when you're that close to a team, you realize what these people are as human beings, their work ethic. Like Love, for example, when he was coming out of a small school, I thought, wow, is he talented? but he makes a lot of the same mistakes over and over. He needs time. That's exactly what they gave him. You know, I'm sure Aaron Rodgers rubbed off on him, just as Brett Favre rubbed off on Rodgers. And then we actually saw it on the field last year, and he was phenomenal. That's who you invest in.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it. Just think about it. When they draft players or when they sign free agents from other teams, they really don't know what they're going to get once they pay the guy and bring him into the building. So a team that has this draft and develop philosophy, and Green Bay seems like they probably had a quarterback. Let me see, Bart Starr was there in like I was born in 1969, and I think Starr was their quarterback. I can't think of 2 or 3 years where they didn't have a good quarterback. So they have done something right from an organizational perspective. That kid, I think, is going to have a big year. It starts tonight. He's going up against a brand new defense with the Philadelphia Eagles and Vic Fangio, and they might be shorthanded a little bit. Let's hear what my man DiBiase has to say up in Philadelphia.
Well, we heard yesterday Devin White is out for tomorrow's game against the Green Bay Packers in Brazil. It sounds like Isaiah Rodgers is also going to be out. Rodgers was slated to be the starting boundary corner opposite Darius Slay in nickel packages with Quinyon Mitchell in the slot. Base packages, Mitchell would probably be on the outside. Rodgers out, though, with a hand injury. Interesting dilemma now for Vic Fangio. Does he go with Keely Ringo on the outside, keeping Mitchell on the inside? Ringo had a great summer. He was battling with Rodgers for that starting job. Or does Fangio go with Mitchell on the outside and he runs either Avonte Maddox or Cooper DeJean in the slot with maybe Chauncey Gardner-Johnson playing down as well? It's going to be an interesting decision. For me, I'd put Mitchell on the outside with DeJean or Maddox inside, but I predict it's probably Ringo on the boundary. Interesting dilemma. Ringo has an opportunity to really grab hold of this job with Rodgers out if he does play on the outside.
Philly had a whole bunch of problems with their secondary last year, and that was a part of their disappointment. Of course, to talk about their offense too, being a little bit of a disappointment. This is the part of the game that I really want to watch with them. I want to watch how Vic Fangio is able to transition that defense and get those guys to play on one page. There's a lot of people in Miami and a lot of people in Denver where he was his last 2 stops have a lot of bad things to say about him, but I always thought he was one of the best. We'll see if he can confuse Jordan Love, but Jordan Love has 4 receivers all on rookie deals, and all of them can play, and he's used to all of them.
And I would get all those guys on the field a lot and test that secondary depth. I'm living in 11 personnel. I might even go 4 wide because you got the horses to do it. And the Eagles do things their way, and for the most part, it works. I think they're one of the best organizations out there. But they do not put a premium at linebacker and safety. They do at corner. But in this case, it's young corners. And you know what happens to young corners? They get targeted until they can prove otherwise. Yep,
they get confused. And one way to do that, when you say put them all in on the field at the same time, you have trips with a bunch formation. I heard bunch formations give rookies fits because they don't know when to switch off. And one of the things that they don't do well is a whole bunch of communication. So I would test that ability to communicate right away if I'm Matt LaFleur. All right, so we got some big games coming up. We're going to preview about 4 of them here in our 3rd segment on Locked On NFL. Make sure you stand by. You know what time it is, man? It's time for PrizePicks, man. And y'all know all about PrizePicks and what it is. It is the number 1. That's right, the number 1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active users. And all you got to do, man, is look at the projections and pick more or less. And you do that on between 2 and 6 stat projections, and then you watch all of that Skrilla roll in. Want to play PrizePicks alongside Drewski, Joe Button, and MMA champ Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find them in community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in PrizePicks. All you got to do is download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's the code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win, man, to receive the $50. Run your game. All right, 3rd and final segment here on Locked On NFL. It is opening weekend. Everything's really, really exciting, man. Folks are just oozing about football. Game last night, it took us all down to the wire, man, and we were all on the edge of our seats. There's some games this weekend that may do the same thing. A rematch of a playoff game last year from when Matthew Stafford went to his old stomping ground in Detroit. It didn't go his way. We're going to see if it can go his way this time. The guys at Locked On, Matt Derry, Locked On Lions, and my man Rogers out with Locked On Rams, they did a crossover and they discussed that a little bit. I want to let you hear.
Look, Stafford had a whale of a game last year. The issue was the Rams couldn't put it in the end zone. That was really the biggest thing. But how do you think he'll do Sunday?
I think he'll be great. You know, assuming his health and assuming just a little bit of time. I mean, you know as well as anybody, he's as good as you're going to find. If he has time and he has the ability to make decisions, he's going to score points. He's going to move the ball. The question is whether or not he has time, whether or not his blind side is adequately protected with a backup in Joe Noteboom, who's going to play over there. This team will go as far as Matthew Stafford takes them. He is the most important player. He's the second most important player. He's the third, fourth, 10th, 15th most important player on this team. If he's healthy and good, the Rams will be good.
Matt, the Rams have probably tested my philosophy on team building more than anybody. When they started cutting salary and gave away all their first round picks a couple of years ago, I said, they're done. They missed the playoffs 1 year and came right back and turned that thing around into something else. So that is, I think Les Snead and Coach McVay deserve so much credit. Matthew Stafford has been very, very good for them. And I think, yeah, they do have a chance to go in with a healthy ball club with nice depth at running back to spread it out a little bit and make the one or two plays that they didn't make last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, this is a great week one game. You know, Goff versus his old team, Stafford versus his old team. And I'm with you with the Rams, man, and McVay. They do things their way, to say the least, and it has worked out very, very well. The thing I can't get around, though, in this game is the Rams lost a very good defensive coordinator who's now the head coach of the Falcons. But more importantly, they lost the best defensive player I've ever seen, basically, since Lawrence Taylor. And they're playing the best line in the league in the Lions. And with all respect to Fisk and Verse and their rookies from last year, they're puppies. I mean, those guys are not Aaron Donald and are not the force multiplier that he is. And then they go and trade their best linebacker right before playing the Lions that are better at attacking the middle of the field with Laporta and St. Brown than anybody else out there.
Yeah, so let me write this phrase down. You said force multiplier. It sounds so good. I'm going to go look it up because, in the barbershop, we don't say stuff like that too often, right? So I'm going to look up force multiplier, and I guarantee I'm going to use it once a day on all these podcasts I'm doing. But no, I think you're right. I think that does come down to be one of the best games of the year because it's almost like you really want to see, okay, this is the last game you played last year. If it's the Rams, let's see what you've been working on and what's going to change. I'll tell you what, another game I want to talk about real quick. We're just going to talk about this one. The Texans and the Colts are going to get it on. The Texans are the team now. You're going to see if it's any fun when the rabbit has the gun because they're not going to walk up and surprise anybody. But with the way DeMeco Ryans coaches, he doesn't care about whether you know what he's going to do or not. This is going to get in your face, and they're just going to do it. The Colts, they want to add a little bit. People forget they played a game last year, and this is another game. They played a game last year in week 17 or week 18 that the winner had a chance to go to the playoffs as the Jaguars lost. And the Jaguars lost, and that was the Texans. The coach dropped a pass that would have extended a drive. I think this game has a bunch of drama to it.
I do too. And I don't have a great feel for it, but I do respect both these young coaching staffs quite a bit. Can't wait to watch Richardson. But I have some issues with the Colts defense, especially in the secondary. And with those three receivers and Stroud, who's wise beyond his years, I think they're going to live in 11 and they're going to find matchups they like over and over and over.
Jonathan Taylor, I want to see if he can get back on his giddy up and become one of those top 3 or 4 backs. If he can stay healthy, he's one of those rare guys that can be a bell cow and a guy who can really, really run for a lot of yards and take it the distance because of his speed. Now, the Dallas Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns, from purely just a personnel standpoint, this is one of my favorite games because when you look at these rosters are loaded with a lot of high end talent. You're talking about Myles Garrett. You're talking about Parsons. People that have a lot to prove in both of these teams, starting with those 2 quarterbacks, Dak Prescott and Deshaun Watson, both want to show that they are worth either what they're getting paid, or what they're asking for. Let's hear Marcus Mosher, Locked On Cowboys and Locked On Browns host, talk about the talent level of this game.
These are two really good teams. I think we're going to see how these two teams stack up and measure against each other early on. This is kind of what you want. Like, you want a really good test out of the gate. And if you win, great. That's a fantastic start. If you lose, again, not a big deal. This is what we need to get to in order to become a playoff team once again.
And, you'll find out a lot about each team through week one. And, then you go back to the drawing board, and those are things that each team tries to improve on. But, you got quarterbacks, you got receivers, you got pass rushers, you name it. This game has it. Browns, Cowboys, Sunday, 4:25.
Jeff Lloyd is my man. Jeff Lloyd said that Jerry Jeudy, he told me, I put it on the show the other day, that Jerry Jeudy was going to shatter all of his personal records. If that's true, the Browns might be formidable, and that means Deshaun Watson's playing well, because he has Amari Cooper. Nick Chubb at some point is going to come back. This is a big game for both of those quarterbacks. Which one of those guys? Let me go with it. I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm going to just make a statement. I think Deshaun Watson has a bigger statement to make than Dak Prescott.
100%, but I trust Dak 1,000 times more. I think Dak is vastly, vastly underrated from a mental standpoint, from a calmness, his ability at the line of scrimmage to recognize things. He's kind of like a microprocessor at the line of scrimmage. Now, this game to me screams not a lot of points, and mostly because of Parsons and Garrett. So the Browns lost an elite offensive line coach. He joins his son in Tennessee. They've had all kinds of problems all summer with the tackle positions. Zimmer and Parsons are going to come after Watson like crazy. And one thing that's been totally different, Wig, between him in Houston and with the Browns, he used to kill pressure. Mm-hmm. Now it eats him alive. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league under pressure. Where Dak's the opposite. But the Cowboys, they have a new center and a rookie left tackle. Well, where do you think Garrett's going to line up? You know what I mean? So I think, how do these two quarterbacks deal with a lot of pressure from elite pass rushers? That screams Dak to me.
This is a real good weekend for quarterback matchups. The team that I cover here in North Florida is headed to South Florida to play the Miami Dolphins. Trevor Lawrence has a lot to prove. I do believe that one game won't silence the critics, but it'll silence them enough that they'll have to reach a little bit deeper to try to figure out ways to criticize Trevor Lawrence. The Jags have really added and fortified their receiving core. They think the line that they have now with Mitch Morse at center is going to be able to help them in the running game, as well as keep Trevor Lawrence from having to leave the pocket. If all of those things happen, I think the Jaguars are going to have a big year. Trevor Lawrence is going to silence some critics. Now, on the other side, you got Tua Tagovailoa. I do believe people are still skeptical of him, even though he led the league in passing last year. People are skeptical of Tua around the league.
Yeah, you and I, I'm sure, will have some talks about Lawrence, because I am a very, very much still a big believer, and I prefer him to Tua hands down. They both just signed contracts. I would much rather build my team around Lawrence. However, Miami, with that offensive coordinator, I know is going to throw some crazy stuff out that no one has seen before. Motions that he came up with at midnight on a napkin that no one's ever seen before. And they're a really hard team to play early in the year. Part of that's because of the heat, which Jacksonville doesn't have an issue with. But still, stamina late in games, we even saw this last night, is always going to be an issue for every team week 1, week 2. I don't know who I'm picking here, but I do think the Jags are a really, really interesting team this year.
Yeah, and when you mentioned that Miami offense, and Doug Peterson even said it the other day, someone reminded him that this is, they asked him some sort of question like, is this the game you really wanted to play? He said no. I mean, quickly, like, no, not the first game. Nope. Well, because they have a new defensive coordinator in Ryan Nielsen. They're totally changing everything. And we talk about communication now. They're not doing it with a bunch of young players. They're doing it with veterans. And I think it's going to rain. So if it's raining and it's a little bit wet, that actually negates a little bit of Miami in the passing game, especially with Tua not being a big dude, being a little bit smaller. Maybe with the Jaguars' length, they can force him to change his release point on the ball, tip balls, anything can happen. What they cannot allow the Dolphins to line up and run that thing 35 times and get 4 or 5 yards of carry, because then they will get worn out. And at some point, that is not going to be good for them because it's going to limit the amount of chances that Trevor Lawrence has. Look, you're going to have a chance to hear us every single Friday.
Hey, one more note of this game, Wig, if you don't mind. I didn't know about the rain until now. And as you know, I think the Jags are a very physical front seven. They're built on length and toughness and strength, where the Dolphins are speed. And if I can slow them down a little, that is huge to me. But also when I hear rain, I think about Lawrence fumbling a lot. That worries me too.
Yep, worries me too. And Mitch Morris is the one that can have a lot to do with that because he just can't play hero ball, man. He has to turn into Troy Aikman. Don't try to be Brett Favre. Just turn into Troy Aikman and manage things and trust your teammate. I trust that y'all are going to keep joining us here on the new Locked On NFL because we ain't going nowhere. It is now 2 shows every day. First, the Madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL Espresso, and then stop by the barbershop right here with me, Tony Wiggins, for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented insight, hot topics, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the Madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Mr. Williamson, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the first full weekend and full slate of games. We'll have it locked and loaded for you next Friday here on Locked On NFL. You guys make sure you tap in all around the network, all around the Locked On Podcast Network, and make sure you check out all of the action and breaking news. Take care. We'll see you next time.